Hey guys, what is going on? It is me, BakuriBox12 here. Welcome back to another Realm of the Mad God guide video. I'm here today remaking one of my oldest and most popular Realm videos, the Godlands guide. While that video will always be a classic on the channel, there's a lot more information that I want to give in a shorter amount of time. Plus, it's time for an upgrade. As the title suggests, this guide is squarely aimed at the new players. Let's get started. So what is the Godlands? You're going to hear that term used a lot if you haven't already. Godlands refers to the gray, mountainous, and sometimes snowy area near the very middle of the map where the gods of the realm thrive. Here you'll find next to no vegetation, various rocks, lava fissures, and of course, the high-level enemies known as regular gods. Now, Godlands is a place where a big chunk of the adventure is set. However, don't go there until you're level 20. Follow the quest markers that correspond to your level, and the enemies around you will gradually get stronger and more difficult as you yourself get stronger. The leveling process can become quite tedious, especially when performed over and over, but it's quite necessary in the beginning as it teaches you the fundamentals. When you reach that point and you're ready to jump, prepare yourself for what is probably your most difficult endeavor so far. Everything here is extremely powerful, and the possibility of you backing up into something that can annihilate you in a second is uncomfortably high. The secret to farming in Godlands is all about map awareness, not just keeping an eye out for those red dots on the minimap, but any stray bullets or god walls in the overworld. If you're anything like me, then your first couple of times here are going to fill you with overwhelming anxiety. Aside from good map awareness, you also want to be quick on the draw with your Nexus key. Since Realm is very harsh with its punishments, little mistakes can result in a character death, and thus forcing you to go through that long process of leveling up all over again, wasting more of your time. If you think you're about to take a large amount of damage, Nexus. There's no penalty for doing so. Heal up at the fountain, re-enter the realm, and teleport back to Godlands. The challenge comes from dealing with the various behaviors of the different god types. It's not an easy thing to do, it will take a lot of practice, but to prove to you that it is possible, I leveled up a character from scratch with no pet, no maxed stats, and only used gear that I found while leveling. So if I can do it, there's no reason that you can't either in time. To my surprise, I found that Highlands, the area preceding Godlands, gave me the most trouble. Another reason to teleport straight to Godlands instead of running to it. When it comes to picking the best class to play, it is ultimately up to the player, and I do have a short video talking about the best classes for beginners to play, but I find the Necromancer to be the best suited for low-level farming. Long range, reasonable damage, and a healing ability that becomes more effective when used on multiple enemies at once. This means instead of needing to leave Godlands when you're low on health, you can heal off of the foes around you to stay in the game, something most classes can't do naturally. Although it never hurts to carry health and magic potions on you too. As far as collecting items goes, it will happen naturally as you level up and kill enemies, but sometimes we aren't as fortunate as we'd like to be. Something as basic as a tier 6 weapon can be hard to come by. So if you're feeling up to it, you can stop by any undead layers that you see, as the enemies inside can drop mid-tier equipment. I was able to score a ring, robe, and a tier 3 skull, which was way more effective than what I had before. However, the UDL does come with its own set of challenges. I do have a guide for it, but I'll leave it up to you whether or not you decide to go in. Before we dive into the enemy patterns, there are different tiers of gods that you should know about. In addition to regular gods, there are lesser gods, event gods, quest gods, and lucky gods. For the purposes of this video, I'll be covering the regular gods, since that's what the Godlands is primarily composed of, but this is good extra information to know. Lesser gods are exactly what you'd expect. Less powerful enemies that roam the highlands and can drop a snake pit, so they shouldn't be avoided. Event gods are the most powerful of all and are spawned at Oryx's command when a certain number of quest gods are killed. Some event gods are only spawned once per realm, like the Lord of the Lost Lands, Grand Sphinx, Hermit God, whereas others, like the Skull Shrine, Cube God, and Penteract, can be summoned multiple times. I wouldn't consider any of them to be easy per se, so you don't need to concern yourself with them yet. In time, but not now. Quest gods are quite the opposite. A set number of them already exist as soon as the realm opens up, and none of them are nearly as difficult as an event god. There are multiple per realm, and you can use the quest marker to locate them easily. Lucky gods are sort of a combination of the two. They're the first quests to be visible from Godlands and take the form of golden versions of the Djinn and End God, but their only purpose is to drop 2 high-level dungeons that you don't need to attempt yet. That about does it for all the extra information. For the remainder of the video, we'll be focusing all of our attention on the 10 regular god types and how to fight them. First is the Medusa, the iconic face of the Godlands. It's an aggressive type that actively chases you with a powerful 5-shot spread and a 150 damage red grenade she tosses out every 3 seconds. Easily one of the most intimidating foes to encounter, as the high frequency of the attacks can drain the health of even the strongest players. There are 2 main strategies that you'll see me use throughout this video against nearly every enemy. My primary method involves tightly circling around, always dodging the projectiles and firing my own attacks simultaneously. What's good about this is that you never run the risk of backing up into something, since you're moving around the same area. The only problem is that because of how close to the enemy you are, if you make a subtle mistake in your movement and mistime something, you could end up taking an entire shotgun, a potential instant kill. My secondary technique is a dragging maneuver, where I pull the god around, always keeping out of reach, allowing the shot spread to open up and widen enough for me to squeeze through and lay the smackdown. The only issue is that you can easily back up into another enemy lying in wait, resulting in an unfavorable outcome. Both techniques are equally effective, but they're applied in different situations. Circling an enemy is usually more helpful when going solo and dealing with a single god or at least one type of god, whereas dragging is best applied against a god wall or when in a group of players. Most of the time you will have a lot of people around you to lend a hand. Godlands is a very popular spot, so you don't have to go solo. Medusas can also drop the snake pit portal and a speed potion, so it's worth it to kill them. Next is the Sprite god. Not quite as dangerous as the Medusa, it has 1 less bullet and the same circling maneuver can be utilized here. However, dragging is impossible to pull off, as the Sprite god does not move from its position. You can stand back and attack like before, and you can always use rocks to hide behind for cover, but you don't have quite as much control over this fight as you did with Medusa. It also has a white crescent boomerang, but unlike the other attack, it predicts your next move. In other words, it goes where you go. So if you plan to use that circle technique, then you're going to get hit by it and be quieted, temporarily losing all of your mana for 10 seconds. It doesn't do any damage, so if you're okay with that, then by all means let it happen. You can strafe left and right to try and dodge everything at mid-range, but that's a more advanced technique. In addition to the possible attack potion, the Sprite children have a chance of dropping the Sprite World Portal, a dungeon that you will be entering a lot, so don't avoid them. The Beholder is a breath of fresh air, being one of the easiest gods to kill, and that's all due to its shot pattern. It still follows the player, but the projectiles go outward from the body, giving you plenty of room to move in between the shots, making slight adjustments to your position as need be. Ironically, it has the most powerful attack so far, but its predictable behavior completely cancels that out. The purple star will blind you for 5 seconds, which can be a bit trickier to dodge, but it does 0 damage, and with average monitor brightness, you can still make out your surroundings. The Beholder does not drop a dungeon, but it does drop a defense potion, the most valuable in my opinion. The Djinn is an interesting fellow, one of the few gods to have recognizable phases. It moves towards you slowly, completely invulnerable, before releasing its fairly intimidating attack spread. It's the lowest damage of any god so far, but at close range, it's impossible to get around. Even when backing up, there's not a lot of wiggle room in between the shots. The Djinn is best to brute force through. Take a couple shots for the team to deal damage while he's vulnerable. Despite having 1000 health, you only have to do 500 before he flashes red and self-destructs. You may get a speed potion from killing one, or the Cave of 1,000 Treasures portal at a very uncommon rate. Now we have the Leviathan. In other words, fun time is over. Easily the scariest god to encounter by far. High damage, an insane number of projectiles, and constantly changing up its attack pattern make for a daunting opponent. This is the type of enemy that needs to be singled out. It's too unpredictable. The best advice I can give is to move along with it diagonally, and prepare to make a sudden 180 to follow its new path, doing the same. It's gonna take some time. I don't expect these reflexes to come quickly for everyone, but with sufficient practice, you will train your eyes to recognize these patterns, and what used to be too fast will become perfectly manageable. Fittingly, the Leviathan drops a defense potion, and the Puppet Master's theater portal. The Ent God is one of the harder enemies at first. It behaves like the Medusa with a similar attack spread, albeit less powerful. However, it predicts your movements, completely negating the circle method. You can't anticipate the shots based on your position, because they'll always go where you go. Instead, you need to fake him out. Start moving in a direction and then shift gears the other way before the attack comes out. This will allow you to manipulate the Ent God's every move. If there are other gods in the area, then this may not be a possibility for you. In that case, there is some room in between the shots that you can move through. It can be a little tough to get the hang of, but after a couple fake outs, you start to get a feel for where the Ent God will strike next, and it feels good to be able to outsmart him. It doesn't drop a dungeon of any kind, but it can drop defense. The Flying Brain is good news, the least threatening god of them all. Its ridiculously high attack speed is balanced out by the lowest damage of the regular gods. It's such a relief when you get done fighting a bunch of Medusas and Leviathans and then get rewarded with a crowd of flying brains. They behave almost identical to the Beholder, only faster. So quickly moving left and right when the attacks get close is all you need to do. It drops the Mad Lab portal, one of the best dungeons you can do when trying to max, and a potion of attack. The Ghost God, or as I call him, the Melee Killer. Thankfully, we're playing on a Necromancer, so the Ghost God's slow attack speed gives us plenty of time to attack at our safe range and outlast the projectiles. Be wary though, it has some of the highest damage outputs in the Godlands. 7 shots, 120 damage per shot? That hurts. Killing it may result in a potion of speed and an undead lair portal. The Slime God, on the other hand, is a huge beginner's trap, and it all has to do with that little green star. Its high rate of fire is enough to catch anyone off guard, and when trying to figure out his pattern, it's likely to get hit by that green star and get slowed for 6 seconds, which in the heat of battle is a long time. Not only does that give the Slime God time to catch up with you, but any surrounding gods can pile up on you with no way to escape. Now, like with the Ent God, you can fake out the Slime God's attacks, but it's a lot harder to time since he attacks more often. For this reason, I tend to back up and deal with it the old-fashioned way. So long as you prioritize that slowing star to avoid, it becomes far less stressful. It drops the portal to the toxic sewers and another defense potion. Finally, we have the White Demon. And he's pretty easy. 3 shots, reasonable speed, a low 45 damage, and a predictable pattern. You can easily move around each attack and continue normally. The only danger is that the attacks pierce through armor, meaning they will always do the same amount of damage regardless of your defense. But it's still easy to dodge. It can drop an attack potion and the Abyss of Demons portal. The only things I haven't mentioned are the rock, steel, and wood constructs. 3 robotic gods that heal one another in a rock, paper, scissors formation. They're pretty cool looking and they can drop an attack, but it's better to avoid them as they require a lot of damage to kill or the use of a mystic. You may also stumble upon the Crystal Prisoner. You'll see people type TP for Crystal in the chat a lot, since it also requires a lot of damage to be cracked. But it's best to be treated like an event god, something extra to attempt in a group because it is pretty dangerous. When it comes to the Godlands, that's about everything you need to know. It's a scary place at first, yeah, but I know you'll be tearing it up in no time. It just takes practice. With that being said, I hope this guide was able to help those who needed it and entertain those who wanted it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, don't forget to check out the next episode whenever I post it, which will probably be soon. Alright, see ya.